Hello, welcome to this edition of the UMGoBlue.com podcast. This is Phil Callahan along with,
Clint Derringer.
and we're here to talk about Michigan's time expiring win over the Northwestern Wildcats in Wrigley Field.
Oh man, how about that one? Oh man, emotions. You know, when you coach this game, when you're part of this game with these young men, coaches, staff, and you're with them for hours and hours, it ends on the day, and you go through that emotional roller coaster like that, you appreciate the hard work, you appreciate their fight, their grit to finish. I haven't been a part of a 5 turnover game and win the game. The last time Michigan had was South Carolina in 2018, and we lost, having 5 turnovers. So there's things that we know from a decision-making standpoint. Fumble happened. We're going to take that as coaches, not on the players. But at the end of the day, we found a way to win, and that's the most important piece. So really excited for our team to be 8-2 right now, as we go into this next game, as we go to prepare for Maryland.
An away home game for Michigan. There were so many Michigan fans in attendance. Michigan winning by a score of 24-22. Well, Clint, what'd you think about that one?
I mean, it's amazing, historically amazing that Michigan managed to escape to be 5-0 in the turnover battle, be -5 in the turnover margin, and escape a victory. Never happened before. So Michigan full and be counting their lucky stars, and maybe a tiny bit of overlining is that statistically, when you look at yardage and success rate, Michigan was the dominant team on both sides of the ball, but to escape with a victory is way more good luck, and let's hope that is balancing out some previous bad luck, and not that we don't have to pay the piper going forward from here.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, I was at the game. It was an amazing atmosphere, and definitely, we've talked about how Michigan struggles on the road, but even though this was an away game, the crowd was overwhelmingly Michigan, and Sharon Moore acknowledged that in the post game.
It was outstanding. Big shout out to the Michigan family for coming out and support us in Chicago. I thought there would be a good group showing of Michigan, but it was better than I thought. And they came, they were ready to go, they were pumped, they were loud, they were supportive. So much appreciation.
And it was really bizarre, Clint, because there were times where, again, there were about just under 40,000 people there, which is very small for, a Michigan game anywhere. And it was overwhelmingly dominated by Michigan fans, but it was very loud. It was a very raucous crowd. And, you look at the game, and statistically, in that first half, I kind of laughed because I had said in the last podcast that I wanted to see Michigan throw the ball, right? And boy, did we see the RPOs locked on P in that first half. And it was the Bryce Underwood show. But so on one hand, I was really glad to see Michigan passing the ball and Bryce Underwood just, taking over. And yet, when we went to halftime, even though Michigan dominated statistically, the score was 7-6. And you felt like Michigan was dominating, but the scoreboard didn't say it. And it was one of those times where, even though statistically they were just running up numbers, they weren't converting. They weren't putting points on the scoreboard. So it was frustrating at halftime. I tweeted at halftime, I said, listen, Michigan is going to win this game ugly, and there's going to be a lot of unhappy people. Now, I didn't know how ugly it was going to get in the second half, but it was really weird. Just a very odd feeling to be dominating, but not dominating the scoreboard.
Yeah, and special teams again. on top of the turnovers, one of those 5 turnovers comes on special teams on a punt return with Samaj, and then missed field goals, 2 of them. So um, it these are echoes of previous complaints for sure. And I'm trying to remain just positive that you ended up, in a playoff type scenario where if Michigan wants to get into the college football playoff, they have to win the rest of their games. So that makes this game against Northwestern a de facto playoff game. So survive in advance and check the box.
These guys just see the vision, and in college football in the Big Ten, it is hard to win. Every week it's a battle. So, you can't have 5 turnovers every week. That's not going to help you win. So we got to clean that up. But we moved the ball on offense. We had 496 yards of total offense. Defensively, held them to 61 yards rushing. That's incredible. That's an amazing job of the defensive staff, defensive front. So, but again, proud of this team in the win.
But as soon as you look under the hood at any of the details, it gets tough to stay optimistic, because it was ugly. And to keep moving up and down the field and not put points on the board, it felt like Michigan was tempting fate, and very lucky that the other shoe didn't drop. And now you hope that the progress continues, because you're right that Bryce Underwood for sure showed a different level of calm in his footwork and his pocket presence, and that was what you and I said that we definitely wanted to see qualitatively. So that was great to see. It showed immediately that it was more effective, and he hit Andrew Marsh, for 190 yards receiving, I think. So outside of that performance, with those 2 guys, and being able to run the ball consistently in the second half with the offensive line after Jordan Marshall got dinged up, the moving the ball and the empty yardage, the empty calories, there are some positivity or some glimmers of hope there. But in terms of translating into points and what it means for this team as we come down the home stretch with 2 more games to go, there are far more concerns and red lights flashing on the dashboard than there are positive glimmers of hope.
Well, and that's the frustrating thing, or I guess that's the funny thing about the game. As I said, there's something for everybody, right? Coach Moore took from it that, how resilient the team is, right? I took from it that our special teams are just broken, that despite the fact we pass the ball, we're still not passing vertically. And, when we go on the road, when you look at these last 3 games, right, the Northwestern, Maryland, and Ohio State stretch, you look, I told somebody before the game, I said, listen, I feel great about Ohio State. I don't know how I feel about Northwestern and Maryland. Okay. And it's interesting because even the players mentioned, and, this was Andrew Marsh and Mason Curtis.
Say everything we do has to be urgent. We've kind of, ever since our last loss, we kind of been in a playoff mindset, I would say. Just knowing that we gotta win everything. We gotta win out, gotta keep going, really just play to our potential.
Like Mark said, we gotta win out. It's win or go home. So we just gotta keep coming, stacking days, learn. Defense has corrections. Obviously, they score points, so it's not a perfect game from us. And just go back, watch the film, and get better.
Well, the problem with playoffs is you can lose to anybody. And that is exactly how it felt in this game. So at halftime, it's 7-6, and I'm like, this is an F around and find out game, right? And we talked about this looking back at the season where Michigan came into this game with only 2 losses, but there were games that were so close. If lightning struck, if the other team broke a big play, you could have lost 2 or 3 more games. So that was my thought at halftime. Michigan comes out in third quarter, scores 2 touchdowns. Heading into the fourth quarter, it's 21-9. Not super comfortable, but you're feeling like you're trending the right way. And then just lightning struck. And lightning struck again, right, with all those turnovers. And, we're going to talk about Samaj. it appears that Samaj won't be returning punts, which I think is the right call. I think you need to take him out there. We've talked about that on the podcast. But he had that turnover, and talk about somebody snake bit. There's a lot of discussion on whether that was the right call, right? So he definitely fumbled the ball, but he also got it back, and he had a referee across the field call it a turnover. And it's kind of like, Samaj, again, snake bit, okay? But you had it. It was another turnover. And then you have, Bryce throwing, back-to-back interceptions. And you really had the feeling, you look at the fourth quarter and Northwestern scored 13 points, 13 unanswered points until time expired, okay? And, I'm down on the field next to that goalpost and, hey, I had confidence that Michigan had a chance to win, and I always think Michigan's going to win, but I'm sitting there thinking, well, maybe this is the F around and find out. You don't put points up, you miss field goals, and Northwestern just kept coming. And, Michigan ekes out a 24-22 win. And like you said, there's many great things in this game. You had, Marsh emerge as just, basically wide receiver one, right? He may not be wearing number one, but he sure looks like Bryce's favorite target. Statistically, Michigan was just a machine, 496 yards. But if you were to look at the stats and try to imagine, you're thinking, Michigan dominated. Well, they dominated, but not on the scoreboard. Okay. And it was interesting. You did see the Michigan defense basically just, keep bailing out the Michigan offense. And Trey Williams, had a number of things to say.
Oh, it's good. That's something we pride ourselves on here. We say run wall, run wall, run wall. So anytime we could keep them to low numbers in the rushing yards, especially guys like me get happy. Derek and TJ and Cam and Dom, they get happy with the sack totals. How many rushing yards did they have? That's my pride and joy every single week. So, this weekend I was especially happy. I was ecstatic. So, yeah, I expect them to come hard. And it's Michigan. Like, we get everybody's best shot every Saturday.
Well, yeah, we got Northwestern best shot, and it was almost enough, right? So when you look at it, he recognizes that, hey,
we play 3 teams, and all 3 of these teams can beat you. Like if you like, and we saw that on Saturday. Like we almost lost, but good teams find a way to get back and finish out on top. But yeah, no, you can lose any of these games if you don't prepare right and do what you have to do. So.
But you don't want to lose to Northwestern, okay? I mean, there's no glory in that, no offense to Northwestern. But you see this team just, you can call it resilience or you can call it tempting fate or dodging bullets, right? And again, you just, hey, we came out on top, amazing atmosphere, great to be at Wrigley, great to see so many Michigan fans come out. But you look at this team and you just got to have a lot of heartburn, right? And I understand that, Sharon Moore is trying to find all the positives in it and being happy with an 8-2 record. But you look at this team and there are consistent problems, all right? And again, the other worst thing that could happen, besides losing, which they didn't do, is you got more players dinged up, okay? And it's amazing that, we're to our 4th tight end, right? And we're to our, definitely 3rd or 4th string running back. And Michigan came out on top. So on one hand, you can say, wow, what a resilient team. They're going through the depth chart and guys are continuing to get a chance. And, Sharon talked about how happy he was for the freshmen.
There's so many positive things to reflect on with this young group. And you talk about, we got 6 freshmen starting, redshirt freshmen or freshmen starting. It's wild. It's unbelievable ride. It's so fun to be around these kids. They work so hard. They prepare so hard. So you want that win for them more than anybody. And for them to pull it off like that is unbelievable.
And so on one hand, you can say, wow, we're really putting some money in the bank for future seasons, right? Especially with the Bryce Underwood Marsh connection that it seems to be emerging. But you just wonder how many bullets you can dodge. And you watch the game and it's incredibly frustrating to see the small mistakes that this team keeps making. And, some bad penalties and even, as great as it was to see Bryce pass the ball like crazy, it also seemed like, hey, RPOs are supposed to be one of three, right? And definitely it was pass, 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 and it caught up to them in the second half. So what do you take from this? I mean, it really super happy with the win, but really questioning exactly where this team is and what its plan was heading into that game.
The execution and lack of consistency is the blanket that kind of puts out anything else that would be kind of a shining light. Right? It's really the lack of consistency because you don't know what you can trust. We've seen a lot of different good things. I like the way that you said it. There was something for everybody in this game, but you don't know if you can count on it the next time that it's going to come up. And thankfully, in this game, the defense, especially in the second half, was absolutely consistent. I said at halftime what I thought that it was going to take for the tide to turn was no third down conversion for Northwestern of 5 or greater. That if a 3rd and 4 or less, I think you could swallow it. But if there were 5 or more yards to go, then Michigan had those cases to keep giving the offense chances. And it was a huge pleasant surprise that that's what Michigan did. The third down conversion of 5 yards or greater for Northwestern in the second half. And I tried to kind of detail that as we were kind of live commenting through the game on Twitter. And then they only gave up 1 third down conversion of 4 yards or less. And I think Northwestern for the whole game only converted on 2 third downs. So in terms of consistency and domination, the defense absolutely came to play in this particular game. Northwestern's not a great offense. That quarterback is not a great quarterback. And so, you can only play the team that's across from you for sure, and we've seen struggling offenses still, give Michigan's defense trouble. And in this case, it was the offense that was certainly an anchor around the neck of the defense, and they answered the bell. So maybe that is something that we can kind of grasp onto here. It is the same time of year that last year the defense kind of turned a corner and settled in and became dominant. Pair that with what we saw from Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh in the passing game, and ignore the hideousness around that. But if those things can come back consistently in the next game, especially another one on the road, pretty decent travel distance to the East Coast, then maybe we can kind of take a sigh of relief into the final game of the year. But overall, it's this lack of consistency that they've done everything well at some point or another, but it disappears in some big moments. And even the run game, as much as I want to give a ton of credit to the offensive line in this game, and definitely Jordan Marshall, before he went out with a shoulder injury, was having another heck of a game, individually and as a unit. They deserve their props and their flowers for sure. But there's a huge 4th down and 1 that this team just got stonewalled. And it goes down as a turnover because Bryce actually fumbled the snap. But that 4th down conversion is really, really where the Michigan of old, if they need 1 yard to go in any big spot against even the most tough, imposing defense, Michigan's going to get that 1 yard. And I know that's what Sharon Moore wants the identity of this team and this program to be. So to whiff on 4th and 1 so so comedically and not even be able to execute the handoff was the one sour patch that kind of comes with the run game from Saturday.
So one of the things that impresses me, and this was even last year, and it's carrying through to this year. And I mentioned last season because last season the offense perpetually disappointed the defense, right? This game versus Northwestern was one of those times, right? And, you have the defense just taking it in stride, right? And, Mason Curtis mentioned after the game.
Really just the culture you build here, the tradition, all that, tough team, fight through adversity as long as we get the win. It's college football, so it's hard to get wins on the road. Go out there and get a stop. We mess up sometimes, they mess up sometimes. It is what it is. As long as we got each other's back, we should win the game. It
seems legitimate. It seems sincere. This team is hanging together, right? And it doesn't seem manufactured. It doesn't seem like a cliche. They genuinely seem to have each other's back. They genuinely seem to support each other. And going through a game like this, it just makes them tougher. It's almost like, and Sharon talked about the resiliency and coming through, but you do see it right now. We got to see what happens, what happens if they don't pull it out at the end, but they did pull it out at the end. And you have Zavada, who missed 2 and then nails that game winner and gets carried off the field as a conquering hero, right? And I don't know how much they showed on the broadcast, but it was really amazing, okay? And like I said, this wasn't, they weren't down because he missed 2. It's like, oh no, they got it. He's got it. And then they carry him to the Michigan sideline and he greets his family and friends and it's one of those amazing time in sports. And I know people say, well, but it was just beating Northwestern, but to the people who were there, this is an epic core Michigan memory, right? And you see the team come together, you see the team, rise up, and they have this chip that they're just going to come through. And, I think back and some of the players mentioned it and Trey Williams specifically.
I think that honestly, the strength of us isn't even something like on the field for real. Like for me personally, I feel like the strength of this team is like the camaraderie, like none of you guys see, and like just how close of a team we are, and just, like we do everything together. Like it's not like a me first locker room. It's a us. So yeah, that's what I would say our biggest strength is together. Just like how connected we are.
When did you start to feel that and notice that this season?
Honestly, I noticed that after USC, how connected we are. Because, like, a lot of teams, what happens to them happened, like, whatever happened to us at USC, a lot of teams after that, they start losing 3, 4, 5 games in a row. And, like, we told, like, after that game, we were like, that's not happening. This is not going to be us no more. And so that's why I feel like that.
I was at that USC game. It was a stunning, crushing defeat. It was a butt kicking, okay? And you really wondered how this team was going to bounce back. And they did, right? We look at what happened last season. Michigan kind of went into a tailspin. This year, they're not winning epically, but they're winning. That they're not winning by 3 or 4 touchdowns that we would all like. But you can see that, they were bloodied by that loss to Oklahoma and bloodied again versus USC, but they kind of used it as fuel to come back. And, one of the other things that really interests me, okay? So you have a freshman, right? You have Andrew Marsh just lighting the world on fire, right? And instead of being all cocky after the game, he says,
it means the world to me just to be able to have a chance, opportunity just to come out here with the team, with the guys I work hard with every week. Just having an opportunity to come out here and do something like that, make history, it means a lot to me.
And one of the things that I wondered about is heading into this season, okay, I thought that Donovan McCulley was going to be wide receiver 1, right? Not only wearing the number 1 jersey, but I thought he was going to be the guy, right? So they bring him out in availability, and, you know, they ask him, you know, what do you think about not getting all the throws not getting all the passes, right?
Yeah, of course, I want the ball, of course, but I also have the, mindset of a former quarterback. So like if you're going to a guy and he's hot, like keep going to him. Let him keep going, Uh, and that's just how I feel about that. Like if I'm hot, keep going to me. If Marsh is hot, keep going to him. So that's the good thing about having a guy on each side. So
In a team with so much talent and so many guys who came in, who transferred in to be here, they seem to be playing very selfless football. And, as somebody who loves football and loves to see a team come together, I genuinely, I like it. I hope it's, it seems sincere. I hope it works out for them. But they're all saying the right thing, right? And not only are they saying it, but, you don't see people hanging their heads on the sideline. You don't see Donovan McCulley being all upset that he's not getting the ball when Andrew Marsh is. It's really seems to be pulling together. And even, when Jordan Marshall goes down, they're like, well, next guy up, right? And lo and behold, and you called out, you said you expected good things from him, right? And he did. Bryson came through. So you look at this, and like I said, there's something for everybody here, right? There's even a little bit for Ohio State. If Ohio State wants to think, well, look, we can stop the running game. Northwestern did for a bit, and then Michigan busts out again, right? Or maybe they're going to laugh that Michigan struggled with Northwestern. Well, you can interpret this game many ways, okay? And one of the ways that I look at it is I'm still disappointed with the special teams. It's broken. It will need to be addressed in the offseason, okay? And I don't know if that's a coaching change, but, after so many years under Jim Harbaugh that special teams were just automatic and very well executed, that is not the case now, okay? So we're going to address that in the offseason, too late now. The thing that I took away from that first half was Sharon talks about complementary football. Well, complementary football is also not throwing the ball 14 times in a row, right? And I'm watching it and I'm like, you know what? Are you specifically doing this to show that you can pass the ball? I don't know. But then you bust out and again, Jordan Marshall ends up with 142 yards. So it's weird because in no world would I say that this is an epic Michigan offense. But then you look at the stats and you're like, well, statistically, except for margin of victory, they are, right? So I'm really puzzled. I don't know. And, we talk about, playing Northwestern and playing Maryland. We don't know if this is going to be, you're going to just lose to Northwestern, or if you're just going to lose to Maryland, or if they're just going to come out and just light the world on fire. And we haven't seen it yet. Right. But it's interesting. We got a chance to talk to Trey Williams, and, what is it like to be put in a bad position?
Just our mindset. I feel like as a defense, every week we just prepare for whatever situation we're put into. I think that's what good defenses and great defenses do. Just defend the blade of grass. Wherever they spot the ball, they don't move from there.
So you're there, and one of the nice things about going to an away game is, as media, you get to be on the sideline, right? You get to see the team, and you saw nobody on the defense throwing helmets when Bryce threw those interceptions. You saw nobody screaming. You just saw guys going out to work, and it's amazing, And again, Trey talked about everybody getting Michigan's best shot, which we always say, but it just seems like they take it in stride. Drone keeps saying.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, one, like you said, we're 8-2. All our goals are in front of us. We're playing for a lot. You know, you're playing meaningful football in November, which is what you ask for as a football coach, as a college football player, just any player in general in this game. And when you're in November and you're playing for something, it means a lot. You know, so especially with a young football team, you know, you go out there with 6 freshmen on offense and a bevy of them on defense and special teams. Yeah, the mistakes are there that we got to fix, but you're also very blessed to be able to be in that position of being 8-2. But yeah, you got to self-reflect and look at everything that you're doing to make sure that you're doing everything right.
All our goals are ahead of us, right? And they are. And you know, I kept thinking this, you know, as we were getting ready for Northwestern, like, well, all your goals are ahead of you, and also all your potential disappointment, right? Like, it's all there, and they just keep winning. And you know, they got another road game coming up, and you know, we don't know if Jordan's going to be back. It looks increasingly unlikely that Justice Haynes will be back during the regular season. Sharon back and forth and played some word games. After they said on the broadcast that he was gone for the season, Sharon said, well, and they got a clarification, he's gone for the regular season, right? But this team just gets knocked down and they keep going. So I admire that, but the consistent inconsistency is really irritating, and I just wonder how long they can go before it catches up with them.
I mean, 5 turnovers is not. It's a huge outlier statistically. You know, I dominating in yard, you know, allowed and yards gained does line up, right? I think the Vegas spread ended up at 10.5, and Connolly's model thought that Michigan would win by 10.4. Like, the consensus was in this was going to be about a 10-point game, and that's score. It's 1 red zone trip. It's Zavada not missing 2 field goals. You know, it's all right there, but they flirted with disaster by squandering so many opportunities. So in terms of down to down and success rate and explosiveness, that looked like what we expected to see, but we almost got a huge statistical anomaly because of not taking care of the football. And I right after the game, just like everybody else, I've taken a couple deep breaths and trying to put it into context so that you're not. I never want to be angry to win, right? For sure. So I tried to zoom way in and think about how young this team is, how young the program is, and that Sharon is in the second year of being a head coach at all, not Michigan, but the second year of a head coaching tenure. And put that into some more context with some other coaches that were in their second year in their development. And I think that helped me remember that the inconsistency that we are seeing and I think rightfully complaining about as fans, it does make logical sense from that standpoint. Freshman quarterback, 18 years old, just turned 18. Some of your best offensive linemen as your freshman, your best receiver in the last year, a true freshman. You're rotating almost 10 deep in your secondary. True freshmen, some true freshmen. Your linebackers are young and inexperienced. So all of that adds up to inconsistency and a little bit of randomness in terms of where the chips fall. So I think we have to enjoy the ride, enjoy the games that we're seeing. Certainly enjoy a 4-game winning streak since USC. And, you know, looking at the whole resume for Michigan this season, they've beaten other solid teams. Losses are still proving to be against teams that are pretty good. Oklahoma now is 8-2, 12th in the SP Plus overall. USC is 8-2, 13th in the SP Plus overall. Right? Michigan lands right around 20, 21 right now, I think, after that performance. So the game coming up against Maryland is almost exactly the same profile as we saw against Northwestern. It's a road game. It's a statistically weak offense very one-handed. I think they like to pass the ball almost exclusively. So, not as much of a run threat with Maryland, and a better than average defense. Right now, they rank 43rd in SP Plus as a unit at Maryland. This is almost the same game as it was. And in the preseason, I thought by this point, Loxley, the head coach, would be fired, and that maybe the program would be reeling, and that Michigan would get lucky and kind of have a program that's really, really down and able to take advantage of that. And this team at Maryland is showing some resilience, just like Northwestern did. And the AD just, made a statement in favor of Mike Loxley and says he's going to be back. So Michigan we're going to be able to compare the Maryland game to the Northwestern game, because they are very, very similar tests in terms of Michigan's performance and medal. And I think you made some great points about seeing some positive indicators of the culture and the players coming together. Because for us as fans, 2023 is still pretty fresh in the memory, but a lot of those players and certainly a lot of that coaching staff is gone. And this is, remarkably a different skeleton and foundation to your program on this team. So you got to kind of rebuild it from the ground up. And there are things to kind of hang your hat on right now. It's disconcerting that, you don't know what you can count on from week to week with the team. So I try to come out, be happy with an 8-2 start to the season, exactly what I would have predicted before the season. They've met my expectations. I think they just need to take care of business in Maryland and try to stay healthy, and then let it all hang out against the Buckeyes, and let's see where we're at when November turns to December. I just want to kind of embrace a little bit of the randomness and see what kind of surprises the team and the coaching staff can pull out, coming forward here.
So, Clint, I want to be clear, okay? I'm kind of bouncing between being positive and being, concerned and negative. Now, again, down on the field with our photographers, and Michigan is driving down, and, I channeled my inner JJ McCarthy, and I said, hey, where would you rather be right now, right? It was an amazing experience. I enjoyed every minute of it. Win or lose, it would have been an interesting memory, right? So I'm glad they pulled it out, right? And like I said, I bounce all over the place. On one hand, I'm like, wow, they keep coming back and pulling it out. Man, it shouldn't be this close, right? And I always I use the the analogy of John Elway, right? It's like he had all these fourth quarter comebacks. Did you need to have that many fourth quarter comebacks? Would it have been better if you weren't in that position? But, when you were there, it was a great thing to see. And, you look, again, I try to take out my enjoyment as a fan and then step away and kind of look at it unemotionally, right? And that's kind of where my frustration comes is I look at this team and they had all the pieces when the season started, I believe, to be one game better than where they are right now, right? I know we're right on track with your predictions. And I'm thinking, well, okay, would you rather be a frustrating 8-2 team or a scrappy 2-6 team? Well, I'd much rather be 8-2, right? I'd rather be where we're at than, 4-6 or whatever combination when I look at beneath us in the Big Ten. So I'm trying to interpret what I'm seeing. Is the Big Ten just tougher than we give it credit for, right? And you're just going to keep scrapping, and Michigan is kind of trying to get to that upper layer, right? To where we think Indiana and Ohio State and Oregon are. And I'd much rather be Michigan than Penn State right now, right? Or, go through the list of teams. So it's funny because as Michigan fans, there's always a certain amount of angst, I think. Okay. No matter how well you do, right? There's always, well, we could have did better. And even in the national championship year, well, JJ could have thrown more. There are a contingent of fans who always want more, right? So I look at 8-2, and if we could go get back in our Wayback Machine, and you would say, Phil, guaranteed heading into the Maryland game, Michigan is 8-2, and all their goals are ahead of them, right? I would say, I'd take that. And yet my feelings aren't there. I don't feel that good. And when I look at, if you had told me that Michigan had two amazing running backs that, if you add all their yards together, they're Heisman candidates, right? Well, you have two great running backs who just have amazing 60 and 70-yard runs. And when one goes down, the other one just shows up, right? And when the second one goes down, a third one pops up. I'd be like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I always use the line from Gladiator, are you not entertained, right? When something like this happens, hey, you're watching to the last second. You are tuned in. You are not looking away, right? So part of me says, wow, if I look at all these separate pieces, I'm really happy, okay? If you told me that we had our freshman wide receiver just emerge in a game and dominate the game, right? And Zavada kicks a game-winning field goal, I'm with it. I'm with you, right? And yet, the field goal game has been disappointing this season, right? And I would say wide receivers have been kind of disappointing, and tight ends have been kind of disappointing because of injuries. And if you told me that we would be playing so many freshmen in so many positions right now, and we were still 8-2, and not just, hey, this, we're 2-8 and we're just getting everybody experience, I think I'd be really happy. I don't feel like I'm really happy. Does that make sense? Like special teams, just an absolute poop show, right? It's, you just, and again, I don't want to bag on Samaj, okay? But it took this many games for them to make a switch, okay? And I've been a big proponent of let him sit for a game and clear his head, right? So here we are heading into the final two games of the regular season, and now you're making a switch, right? I have lots of questions about special teams, and a lot of my questions and criticisms are being colored over with the 8-2 record. Okay. If things were not so well, I think the questions we have would be much more top of mind and much more critical. And, if Michigan wants to rise up to the next level, if they want to ascend to the top of the Big Ten, I want to be clear, making the college football playoffs this year would be a huge win. That was what I think this team is capable of, right? I'm not expecting a long run, but I'm expecting, okay, I said before the season, I expect, Michigan to make the college football playoffs. I'm not expecting a long run, but that's what I expected, okay? I expected one loss, okay? I think a 2-loss Michigan team makes the college football playoffs. If you do that, mission successful, great, lot to build on. Now, if that doesn't happen, all of these questions kind of come up. And the thing is, the reason I'm not saying, well, get in the college football playoffs, anything could happen. Yeah, well, you know what? When your special teams are this bad, anything that's going to happen is you not winning. Okay? You need to not hurt yourself with special teams. Okay? How many times do you, when you're in the press box and you're like, look at all the yards they're using by not catching a punt. Yep. Good teams, the teams at the top level don't do that. Okay. And we talk about complementary football. Complementary football is passing and running. Okay. You being able to balance. And we see either one way or the other, right? We see a 70-yard run and then you can't get a 4th and 1. Okay. That is not a great team. And it doesn't mean they're not entertaining. It doesn't mean I don't believe in them. It doesn't mean that I'm not a Michigan fan. It means that you have to push away the emotion. And I always say, take the colors off. Okay. Take the jerseys off. Look at the numbers. If this is the Acme road graders, right? Look at the stats. And what do the stats tell you? The stats tell you that this is a flawed team that has been able to pull wins out of their butt. Okay. And the thing is it catches up with you. Okay. And again, you just got to take these rough edges off. And I said in the last, our last podcast, I am content or just accepting that this is the team we have, not the team that I want. Okay. I have much higher expectations for next season. And I think part of it is going to come to some coaching changes. Okay. And not Sharon. Okay. I'm not in the crazy camp. Right. But there's some places on this staff that I don't think are getting it done. And I think it's going to cause some difficult decisions for Sharon, but decisions that he's going to make. Until the off season, we will put a pin in that and go and get back to that. But right now, this is a very flawed team, and it's flawed in frustrating ways. Okay, special teams should just be automatic, and I'm not talking about the field goals. Okay, you should not be hurting yourself in field position. It's those kind of annoying, frustrating things, and even some of the play calls at times. So again, like you said, we need to remember that Sharon is a second-year coach. Okay, he's learning on the job. The number one thing that he needs to do during the regular season is keep this team together. Okay, I would say mission accomplished. From everything that I see, from talking to the players, from reading their body language, from reading between the lines, they believe in him. They believe in each other. The next thing that the head coach needs to do is make sure that he has his staff adjusted and in the right place. And you don't change that mid-season, okay? Again, we hear the craziness on the internet about, he should fire Wink after last game. Come on, okay? And I'm not saying Wink's the problem, okay? I'm just saying that, the people who think that, Wink Martindale did so bad during the USC game, you need to make a coach change right then. That's not how this works, okay? That's not how real teams work. You evaluate a whole body of work. The question I have, and I will tell you, from what I've seen in last season and this season, Wink Martindale's doing great, okay? Not perfect, but doing great, okay? There are positions that have far greater problems that need to be resolved, and that's an off-season thing. So I watch this team. They're fun to watch. I root for them. They seem like genuinely good guys, right? They're not embarrassing me, okay? Which is my thing, okay? They do things right, okay? They handle their business. But the question is, you're heading into Maryland, and like you said, handle your business and win the game. This is a winnable game. It's a losable game. Don't overlook what's coming up in Ann Arbor, okay, which is the game, which Michigan can say on and on that every game is a playoff game. Well, that's a playoff game, okay? That is a playoff game because you are not playing a team with a losing record. You are playing a team that wants to destroy you, okay? And they just don't want to win. They want to wipe the slate clean of the last couple seasons where they've been embarrassed by Michigan. And playoff game coming in Ann Arbor. And you need to not look past Maryland because everything you want to do, okay? And when I say everything, okay, I want to be crystal clear. In no world do I want Michigan to make the Big Ten championship game. I want no permutations that happens, okay? And I'll tell you why, okay? I believe if you make the Big Ten championship game, Michigan has a very good chance to lose. And a 3-loss Michigan team, I don't think makes the college football playoffs, okay? The way that the season is now built, okay, the way it's constituted, the goal is the college football playoffs, okay? And that means you need to advance and survive, and you need to get to the end of the season and only have 2 losses, okay? So that's what I want, okay? And I think if you have 2 losses and you beat Ohio State, I'm more than happy to go to the college football playoffs and skip the Big Ten. The only value that I see in the Big Ten championship now is if you're on a undefeated run. If you want to stay undefeated and have like an epic historic season, great. But with the goal being the college football playoffs, you want to get to the end of the season in a position to make those playoffs, and you want to beat Ohio State, okay? Beating Ohio State would be the cherry on top for this season, okay? So that's the thing is you have these 2 games left, and if you screw up versus Maryland, you erase all the goodness that happened before. Okay. And that's why I'm interested to see what happens as Michigan heads down to College Park.
I, for all the ups and downs of the entire season, Michigan has some solid wins. The win over Washington, if you remember, walking in the stadium together and just having no idea which way this season was going to turn, if it was going to feel a lot more like last year or not. And to their credit, they played the best game that they've played since USC was definitely that Washington game. Washington right now is sitting at 20th in the SP Plus rankings at 7-3. I mean, that is a solid victory. And they dropped a crazy weather game to Wisconsin, right? For all, without that craziness, that team probably should be sitting at 8-2 with what they have, but they laid an egg in Madison. And then you have this road win at Nebraska, and Nebraska is 7-3 and sitting at 30th in the SP poll. So you've beaten these top quarter teams, one at home, one on the road. Nebraska showing some guts and winning games, even though Dylan Raiola has gone down with a season-ending injury. And then you look at the rest of their wins, and you can understand why, as a fan, it doesn't feel quite as satisfying, because you've beaten New Mexico, who is 77th overall, below average. Central Michigan is 99th overall. Wisconsin is 90th. Michigan State is 81st. Purdue is 6th. Northwestern is 66th. So Northwestern right now, by SP Plus rankings, is your third best win. That is why it feels so unsatisfying, because there's a big gap between the good performances where you beat some pretty decent teams in the Big Ten and these bad performances that we've seen a little bit against Michigan State, not too bad against Michigan State, but then really bad against Purdue, an ugly win. And then this ugly win at Northwestern with 5 turnovers. And then you look at Maryland, and it's the same exact profile, right? They're 60th overall in SP Plus. So even like barely average team, mid Big Ten, and they have to win their last 2 games in order to make a bowl game. So they're going to have an edge and be trying to prove something down the stretch here. Above Michigan always getting the best shot from these teams. So it's a legitimate test. Again, traveling to the East Coast, if Michigan can play solid, if they can play well, if we see a similar looking game to what we saw in East Lansing, I think people should be pretty satisfied with that. If you're winning by more than 1 score and you eliminate turnovers and both sides of the ball look like they are in control, then I think we're good there. If they blow them out 45-0, great. But that's the minimum standard for what we need to see in this game, right? We have to see Michigan play a solid game for 60 minutes in all 3 phases, and you cannot have multiple turnovers and multiple blunders, especially on special teams.
So mid-game versus Northwestern, I was telling somebody, I said, listen, we're really in a position that it doesn't matter if you win by 100 or 1. It's still going to, be a win or a loss, in the standings, right? I really didn't expect it to be a 2-point last second win, right? That was not on my bingo card after the third quarter. Right now, the way I feel about Maryland is win by a point, but don't lose any more bodies. Okay. And I think that's the thing that worries me the most, is that on one hand, you can say all these freshmen are getting experience. Awesome. That's great. Right. But at a certain point, you only have so much resiliency till you break. Okay. And we already see, 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line. And, Sharon talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want me to critique them too bad, because it gets dirty, because that's my as you know, that's the group. But I'm very proud of them. I really am. I really am proud of them. For again, I've said this on record how many times I've never been a part of 3 redshirt freshmen starting, and for consecutive games, they just to have another 200-something yard rushing game. I don't know. I'd have to check the record books, Dave, on how many in a row we've had. Do you know off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head.
See, now we got to test you.
But I think whenever you were OC, we had a few.
Yeah, we've had a few, but like for them, for what they've done, I'm very proud of the fight, the physicality that they continue to have. Proud of Grant Newsome and that O-line staff and what they've done. Yeah, it's always never perfect, but those guys are putting up a great fight and putting us in great position to win games.
And that's great, right? It's great that this is great for next year. For right now, man, I hope nobody else goes down. Okay. And then you have, will Jordan Marshall be back for Ohio State or not? And again, I just keep coming back to, there's so many things you can point to be excited about how this team has stepped up. But then there's a lot of things that you just wonder how far it could go. And of course, I'm excited about the game. I'm excited about Michigan going on the road. And again, 9-2 sounds really impressive. Okay. I mean, 9-2, somehow I feel better about than 8-2. And again, heading into Ohio State, we have them right where we want them, as usual. Right. But again, you look and I don't know how many more players you can lose. And I don't want to find out. I mean, it's funny because earlier in the season, I think we had come to terms with the fact that Wink Martindale was rotating players through in and out, like pretty extensively. And, I made the comment last season that I'd rather see the first string guys be tired and get beat than some of the second string guys. Right. And, but Wink is committed to doing this. Well, as players have gone down, you can see the value in it. Okay. You can see that when a top guy does go down, you don't have the big dip, but again, you're wondering how far it can go. How many guys can you lose? I think we agreed that the defensive line has been slightly disappointing this year, and yet we've come up big in defensive backs. Just next one up just keeps going, and you have just so many questions, so many new guys. And I'll give you an example. Okay, Tony Ellie walked into player availability. Okay. And they tell you you're going to get 4 players. So I knew the other 3 players. So I assumed he was him, right? Just because he was the one guy that I didn't recognize. And honestly, I don't remember ever talking to him, right? So we're down to our 4th string tight end who played well, right? So on one hand, it's amazing that you have that kind of depth, next man up, right? But it just struck me like, oh, wow. We're going really deep at running back. We're going really deep at tight end. And, we've already had offensive line dinged up. And, there's chatter that Max Bredesen is taking snaps at tailback, right? Because that's how lean they are in the running back position. And you just wonder, how much can you stretch before you break? And I think that's the question. Are they going to flex and break, or are they going to flex and snap back and we're going to start getting players back? And that's one of the reasons I don't want to go to the Big Ten championship game. Okay. I want to go to the college football playoffs and have that week off to get guys healthy. Okay. It's totally strategic at this point. So I look at it and again, from a dispassionate perspective, man, this team is entertaining. You don't know who's going to go down. You don't know who's going to step up. Okay. And again, are we not entertained? But man, it's fun and it's a roller coaster ride. And I'm really excited to see these last two games.
And not a lot of highly ranked matchups this week nationally either. And there will be one or two surprising upsets. Somebody's going to be in the headlines for losing a game that they shouldn't have. So as long as that headline is not Michigan, then I'm going to be okay. Survive and advance one more time, and then your best shot to the Buckeyes in Ann Arbor, and let's see where it goes.
So, Clint, we talked about the 5 turnovers being a huge outlier. How big of an outlier is that statistically? Like, I know that you keep stats going back, for a long time. How big of a dent does 5 turnovers make in your play success and the overall health and success of the offense?
Yeah, I can't compare historically the number of turns per game directly with the data the way that I do it. I saw a stat that no team ever had lost the battle 5-0 and won the game. Yes, team had ever done that, and I think there were something like 245 examples of such a thing happening, and it was teams that had done that were 0 and 245, and now teams that have done that are 1 and 245. Like, that's the level of statistical outlier we're talking about. Typically, a turnover in terms of like expected points added in the game context, you lose about 4.5 points, or you gave the other team about 4.5 points on a turnover. So 5 of them, right, would be between 20 and 25 points that you handed them. So in a game that you won 22, say that Michigan handed all 20 points to Northwestern via turnover, that game probably should have been more like 22-0, if not for that crazy turnovers anomaly. So again, just be grateful, count your lucky stars, and let's see a more solid performance this time against the Terrapins in Maryland.
All right. Well, I agree with that. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the umgoblue.com podcast. This is Phil Callahan along with
Clint Derringer.
Oh, let's do that again. This is Phil Callahan along with
Derringer.
Clint, I'm sorry, you broke up again. Give me one more time. This is Phil Callahan along with
Clint Derringer.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
We got to where we are right now because everybody is doing their 111 and everybody's doing their job. Like, now does not call for somebody to be like super heroic and courageous and all this other stuff. We just got to be us and do what we have to do, and we should be all right. Do you want us to get beat on Saturday? There's no peeking ahead. We stick one game at a time. Maryland's a very, very, very dangerous 4-16. Let's be clear. That is not, their record does not reflect how good of a football team they are. So, no, we cannot take them lightly, especially if we want to get to where we want to go.
Don't even talk about the final game. I'm doing that. Don't even do it. Don't even do it.
Trap game spot, Maryland.
No, it's not a trap game. This is a good team, man. This is not a trap game. There's nothing about this game that is a trap game. There's zero trap game on this. This is about a really good team that if you don't play well, you will get beat. So there's that trap. The trap is like the Nick Saban poison comment, trying to get us. No, not a trap game. And everybody knows what's ahead, but we got to go execute. We got to go prepare for this one. Like our lives depend on it. It's a playoff game for us in this building, and there's no trap game with this one.
Thank you for listening to the umgoblue.com podcast. All rights reserved.